Hey there, AGA members. Chris Garlock here with Michael Redmond. Today we will review the 28th game in the AlphaGo self-play series. But first, we wanted to ask you to consider joining the American Go Association at usgo.org. The support of our AGA members is what makes these videos possible. So big thanks to all of you who have joined and all of you watching who I'm sure will join in the future. All right, Michael, I'm excited. We had that little break with one of your games. That was fun, but let's dive right back into the deep end with another AlphaGo game. What have you got for us today?
Yeah, well, there's a lot packed into this game.
How
We're gonna
unusual.
start. We're gonna start with this a slightly confusing fight on the lower side. You might have trouble, but it's. I'm gonna try to explain how it's working out, and it's really exciting fight on the lower side, and then it gets a bit more slow paced. But people are trying to surround territory after that. But
Uh-huh.
there's these weak groups that are sort of attacking each other, and sort of at some points in the game it's hard to tell who's attacking and who's in trouble because it turns around a few times. So it's a kind of an interesting middle game fight that goes on.
So buckle your seatbelts and let's go for a ride, right?
Okay, we'll start the game now. This is actually an opening that has become very popular in modern professional play,
Mm,
because the big shimari is given good value points by the computer programs. And white tends to play star points now. So this is an example of AlphaGo playing, as black it has a 3-4 point, which is quickly covered with the big shimari, and white has star points. So this matches what people are playing a lot now. And of course,
mm-hmm.
we get the 3-3 invasion.
Naturally.
Again, a position where when I was young, of course, everyone would be playing splitting the side,
Right,
obviously. Yeah.
right.
What? Well, no problem. And so now black covers here on the right side where black has a moyo. But again, as I've been saying in other videos, this is a point where we don't really know anymore what the right side is. So I'm going to show you an example of this way, which is the wrong side. Black's covering on the side where black does not have any framework.
Right.
But it actually worked. Actually, this is a turning point that I shouldn't go into deeply, really, because it's really confusing. But if white plays the attachment here, there's all sorts of different things that could happen.
Hmm.
And like I could say it's a secret so far, but it's not. It's just so confusing that no one really knows what's going on at this point.
Wow.
Because black's going to cover and then extend, and we've actually seen this a
Yeah.
lot in professional games. But to tell you the truth, most of them are probably doing it wrong.
Wow.
Because the study of this variation it's still in the process,
So
and I have some ideas as to what the most modern version of this is, but I'm not going to get into it. Like it would take the whole video.
well, it's interesting. I've actually been inspired to get online and play, which has been fun. I've been meeting some of our viewers, and I think they have fun beating up on me, so it's all good. But you are absolutely right. I mean, people are trying so many of these things now. I see stuff that is very clearly from out. It's kind of exciting. I don't know what to do about it, but it's
Hmm.
pretty cool.
Yeah. Well, the same thing at the top professional level. Like there's still, of course, there's a lot of study put into it, but they
Sure.
haven't really come to the final. I think maybe, but it hasn't. The final shape of that fight has not really been shown in professional games yet. It's still sort of on the drawing board.
Cool.
So I'll just go with this variation,
All right.
which is pretty common. And black can play a hane here, can play this exchange, which at this
Hmm.
point is almost always answered here, and then cut here. So this is the
Right.
most popular version of this joseki at this point. A lot of players know it. Like it's played a lot at the amateur level and played a lot at top professional level also. So black will play when the ladder favors white. Um, Black will play this way, which still does leave an attack at B later,
Mm.
which is an issue we're seeing in professional play also. White will at some point play bump against black at B. But let's just, since I've said that, I could give a, like if black plays here and white plays here, and black plays something like this, it would be a big fight in the center of the board.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, if black plays here and we get something like this, for instance, white will be able to capture 3 stones. And so this is also feasible for black because black does get the right side.
Sure.
It depends on the position, I suppose. At this point, black might choose either one. So usually the Joseki stops at this point for a while, and we would have white could play moves like this, for instance, or white could play moves like this. This one, maybe a large knight's move. One of these 3 would be feasible. Like this is the weak point of black's Shimari there. Looking at the attachment at the 3 point, for instance, and of course an extension towards the side. So if white plays here, white's going to have some success in reducing the right side, or maybe the lower right corner on a large scale. So these are the problems that the players might have in this variation. But the point is that even though black is covered on the wrong side, as we thought before, black has turned it around to have a wall pointing in the right direction. So this is also feasible. It can be done either way. This would be ideal for black if black had managed to get this Kakari in, which would, if we have black play this Kakari and white answering it to the left, you would notice that the final move at A can be played at B because the ladder favors black if the Kakari is there. Right. So black, why don't we make that an A? So it's not an A, it's a C, sorry. So if black has a Kakari at C played already, then black can take the ladder at B.
Got it.
Which would probably be good for black. So that would, a lot about this Joseki does depend on the direction. And again, it gets really complicated if white plays this one, because unless black decides to simplify it by playing something relatively simple like this, but that would be backing off just a little bit. So if black does this and then extends, and white's going to push through and cut, it's going to be really, really complicated. And we've seen this in top professional play already, as I was saying. Right. It's not, we're not really finished with deciding how to play that, or at least it's not being shown in the games yet. I think I have a feeling, I think I know that what the most modern variation is. And I don't think you've seen it yet, but it would just be very, very confusing.
Let's not do that.
Yeah. Okay, so this is a point where black has a choice of moves, but again, if black is going to do this kind of stuff, that's going to turn the wall around in the wrong direction. So it's probably not so good in this opening. Like if we got something like this, then white would be reducing black. Sorry, I didn't mean to do that one. That was a miss. If white gets to reduce the right side like this, then black's Shimari in the lower right is not working optimally. So I'd say this is okay for white. So turning the Joseki around is probably not such a good idea in this case. Black could, of course, extend, but then white would play something in the middle of black's moyo, maybe something like this. And we'd have the potential of an AlphaGo-like attack on this wall.
Right.
Being AlphaGo, of course. So black plays in the middle of the side. This seems to make sense. And white plays this move. This is very natural. So the whole point of this Joseki, for instance, you could go to my file of the game against Cho U, which is pretty recent, I think. And I played that Kakari it's my 5th move. After playing the 4 corners, I played my next move as a Kakari, just where white played. And it's not forcing anymore. White doesn't answer it. And in that game, white played a Kakari against the upper right corner. So the point of this Joseki is, this opening, is that the move that white has just played is becoming a very important point. It's controlling the lower side. It is a bit tight, but it is setting up an extension at A next for white. And it's reducing the value of a black move towards the lower side. So it's a very important, it's a key point in this opening.
It's kind of hard.
Yeah.
No, I think it's a little bit hard for black to play on that side now, right?
Well, you're going to see how AlphaGo does that, but it is much more limited.
Right.
And so black would have liked to have a chance to play that Kakari, but the timing is very difficult, maybe not possible. Like with black's last move, if black had played the Kakari, it would have been a completely different game because white would have options of cutting here, making a big fight in the upper right, cutting, maybe crawling first. Either way, there's all sorts of things. White could be playing towards the lower side first. Oh, sorry, I'm getting lost in the variations here. White could be playing this one first.
Yeah.
All sorts of things that could happen. Which, like, if you take it in the context of the whole board position, not only would you get confused, I would get a bit confused as to what the perfect variation to show you would be. So I'm not going to go into detail here. I'm just going to suffice with saying that white would probably play somewhere in the upper right corner, upper right quarter of the board, you might say. Yeah, on the right side, or maybe that cut in the upper right. So black didn't really have a chance to play that move. So that's one of the basic problems that black is having in this opening.
Right.
So black invades the 3-3 point. And this is, I was really bothered by this when we started doing this series of games that master played against itself. But it seems to be sort of a pair with the joseki in the upper right. And the idea is that, first of all, if white wants to make a wall, white probably wants to make that wall towards the left side, right? The right upper side doesn't look so. No. So let's just add a few variations to the SGF file. I mean, to the KGS variations. So first of all, if white is going to do it this way, which has become fairly popular nowadays, the ladder is going to favor black, which could be a bit of a problem. And black still does have plenty of room to jump in here. So that's problem number one. And also, it would be feasible for white to be doing sort of copying black here, and probably ending up playing something on the left side. I don't know about this. It looks about equal, like it's almost a symmetrical position. In a way, like it's not diagonally symmetrical, but the upper side mirrors each other. Right and left side, they're pretty similar.
It's a little better for white, maybe. What do you think?
I'd say it's about even. I don't.
About even. Okay.
My honest answer is I don't know.
Okay.
But when white plays the hane here, which seems pretty popular, this is the most popular variation. Locally, it's good for black. It's considered to be usually good for black because black is getting sente and the ponuki on the outside. It's supposed to be a good trade, but of course, in this case, the ponuki is pointing to the upper side, so it's not as good as it could be. So it's that makes the overall position about even, if you ask me.
Okay.
And for black, there is the added value that black is not so worried about the cut here anymore, which was not an immediate threat, but it was something that black had to keep in mind, since black has not finished the joseki there in the upper right. And it makes it much less urgent for black to continue that joseki now. So black's not, for instance, after this is a point where black could have, let's see if I made a variation. No, I didn't. This is a point where black could have continued the joseki. But then, of course, white would probably be playing something like this, I guess. That would give white a tempo, right? But the fact that black has that ponuki in the upper left, it means that this is not quite so threatening, and black has the option of just leaving it for a while. Otherwise, when black has played the shoulder hit, it's another AlphaGo shoulder hit, and white played a bit of an unusual move. This is where you would expect white to be, for instance, crawling maybe.
Yeah.
And black would usually play here, I guess.
Sure.
And actually, the more white plays here, the better this gets for black. Like black could play something like this.
That's really nice. I love that.
This just improves black's moyo on the right side. So white doesn't want to play too many moves here. It would be pretty normal, though, for white to be playing the crawling move. But the knight's move, it's very similar in meaning. It works okay. In old-fashioned games, you would see people pushing once and then playing the knight's move. And there's a reason for that that sort of comes up into this game. So I'll just leave it at that point, and we'll see the weakness of these two knight moves will be showing up later in the game.
Okay.
So this is what I would expect black to do. This is sort of the natural follow-up of the shoulder hit. And white will probably push through, black jumps to the side. You can see black is still trying to build on the moyo on the right side. So like if white plays here, black is going to sacrifice one stone, the stone at A, just to get a nice wall. No,
it's not the game. Okay.
Playing all these moves on the lower side would probably not be good for white.
Yeah.
It's giving black an opportunity to improve the moyo too much.
Right.
This diagram was meant to illustrate what black's basic plan would be if black had played at A.
So it's probably going to come up here, but I mean, I'm looking at this growing black moyo, and I'm just wondering for white. I mean, white's got to do something at some point.
Yes, well, with a strong professional player and with AlphaGo, it's always a matter of timing.
Yeah.
Okay. So white's not ready to go in quite yet, but pretty soon.
Mm.
Like white wouldn't want to do it with this move, for instance. It would just because covering on the side there is so big. So white's waiting at least one more move, but still has options to, for instance, jump in here or jump in here.
Mm.
When the ladder favors white, you can see white doing stuff like the attachment here.
Mm-hmm.
The ladder does favor white, doesn't it? Yes, the ladder favors white, even if black plays some moves in that corner, it still works. But it could get tricky with black playing the Sagari here. It could get a bit tricky, but it looks like the ladder for the time being favors white. So white does have these options on the right side. We're going to see them come in and play. So instead of playing that move that I expected, black played here.
Wow.
It's sort of weird doing that after playing the shoulder hit, because with the shoulder hit, you sort of expect black to be building on the moyo. But I think it's okay.
Really?
Huh. Well, of course, AlphaGo played it. It's supposed to be okay. But the idea that black's shoulder hit move, why don't I mark it so everyone knows what I'm talking about? This shoulder hit was answered by a stone on the second line. So it's an exchange of a fourth line stone for a second line stone.
Right.
Even though this fourth line stone is not really doing anything, it's probably more influential to the overall board position than white's stone on the second line. So since white has answered it in a submissive fashion, white answered it locally. It means that even if the game pattern changes a bit and that stone becomes captured by white, it's not going to be a completely wasted move because white answered underneath. And so black can, the bottom line is that black can sacrifice that stone if the need arises. It's a light stone.
Right.
So it's okay to play away from it. It would be more natural for me for black to be building on the moyo, but instead the black played the left side. The left side is a big area as it is. So like if black had built on the moyo, you might have seen white building on the left side. That is a big side. It's a wide open side. So it's worth it, I guess. I would not play there, but it's worth it. It's one way to play.
It's grudgingly.
Yeah. So white plays A and B. When white plays the Atari at A, you can be pretty sure that white's going to follow up with the Sarari at B. It's kind of a combination there. Once you've played A, you have to play B. Otherwise, to clarify that, like this time black's going to cut here. And having played this exchange, white doesn't really have the option of giving up one stone on the second line by playing like this. It would just be too terrible, but white's cut from the wrong side. This is where white would want to be cutting on the fourth line and having black connect here. So white's done that backwards. It's just locally, it's very bad for white. So once white plays at A, you can expect white to continue with B. And so this is actually, it's worth playing one move. It's a big move at any time because it gives white a big corner and it makes black's wall fairly weak. So if white can, for instance, somehow manufacture two moves on the right side, playing both of these mark points, then black's wall would be under attack to a certain degree. In fact, we're going to see something like that happen in the game. So that makes sense. Once white is played, once white plays at B and black has a weak wall, there's a definitely a large profit in territory. So now black plays the shoulder hit, the second one, right, on the lower side.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
that makes sense. But white jumps in here.
Okay.
Again, you would sort of expect white to answer locally on the lower side. But this was, I think of it as a kind of a probe move. For the time being, white's actually not going to play all of its consecutive moves from this stone necessarily, but it's looking at the invasion at B, which I was talking about just now. The invasion at B could be
Right.
effective in attacking black's wall, and it's also looking at an attachment at A. So, for instance, the for instance is the tough part in this because there's so many possible variations. But I've tried to make this work. Again, I was saying the ladder favors white for the time being. So if we have black do this, white can always cut here.
Mm-hmm.
So that's actually a bit troublesome for black. So I'm going to have, but that's a really complicated variation. So I just forgot that one for the time being and had black extend, in which case white can afford to sacrifice just a little bit because white does have a living shape in the corner, some potential to live with the stone at B. White can always play his next move here. That would get a living shape in the corner.
That's such a beautiful sequence. I mean, I love how white is just sort of probing and pushing, and there's lots of Aji that's left behind too,
Mhm.
right?
Right. A lot of Aji. So yeah, so this move is using the potential at A and B.
Mm-hmm.
Ideally, white would get a nice life on the right side, but as black does play the strongest move here, that's going to be difficult. So
Mm-hmm.
the variation that I was showing is just an attempt to show how white might just sacrifice everything if white can get some extra value in the corner and on the lower
Mm-hmm.
side and all over the place. So that's probably the idea behind white's invasion there. It's not as if white's trying to outright just take away the whole side. So black plays on this side. This means now it's going to be the B variation that's going to be white's main idea, because although white can, if white moved out with this stone, it would probably not die, but it could get a bit painful for white just to try to save those stones.
Yeah, it's gonna get chased around.
And for the time being, the lower right corner, it's not really black's territory yet, but it's one step closer. So white pushes through. White's still sort of planning, has various plans for the right side. So I'm going to show black giving away some territory again here. And I think white's going to probe at the 3-3 point anyway in this turn.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Because white can use it this way and get some extra eyes for the right side. In this case, white might just go for the right side. So in this case, by attaching it A, if black takes the corner, the variation I just showed was black capturing the corner. Like black could extend here. This would, again, it would give white the option of living with this move later. So if black goes after the corner, white gets these forcing moves that do help white on the right side. So in this case, white would actually be making a life here. Just to continue a little bit further, if we have something like this, it's going to be no problem for white to live.
Hmm.
So that with the added value on the lower side, maybe this is what white is planning. It looks like it would be a fairly even game. Like black would be able to close white onto the side. So white would be playing all on the second line here. But it would still be the whole side would be gone. So it's probably playable for both sides.
Hmm.
Some human players would be happy enough to play with black and go for a big moyo in the center of the board.
Yeah. Either way, it's sort of straightforward.
Mm-hmm.
As long as you don't die.
Yes. So, so that's what I think would happen if black is giving away some value on the lower side, as I was showing in this variation.
Mm-hmm.
But when black plays strongly like this and is not giving away anything, and when white cuts black's extending here, this is the game variation.
Mm.
Now white doesn't really have the option of making a trade like I was just showing, because black's not giving anything away on the lower side.
Yeah.
So now it's going to be a big fight. So this is where I think the real fighting, the fight in earnest starts when black covers here, which
Wow.
for the time being, it sort of looks like an overplay. Like usually when you're playing these shoulder hits on the lower side, you're expecting to be playing sort of lightly in the local
Lightly,
position
yeah, I was thinking
and
that.
aiming for, but so playing so strongly here, um, one immediately gets the impression that it's an overplay. But again, it's a position where this stone, which seems so strange, it's going to come into play. So that extra stone that black has in the immediate vicinity is going to make a difference in the following fight.
So
Obviously.
let me ask an amateur question, which is, I could certainly recognize that that's an overplay, and I would instinctively want to cut. But as
Hmm.
I'm sure you're going to tell me, it's all about the reading. I mean, and it looks to me to be pretty complicated. But I mean, I think you just have to go ahead and cut anyway, because I mean, anything else is just too submissive, right?
Yeah, I think that human logic works well with computers too. Like the computers probably wouldn't think of it that way, obviously, but they get the same results because this is the game move.
Right.
And I completely agree with what you said. It makes sense. Um, Obviously, I would, since this seems to be the natural move, I would just compare it with this variation where white is getting something extra on the lower side. And the fact that black is not allowing that and is trying to take more territory on the lower side, it means that white doesn't really have the option of this kind of a trade because it would be just so much more for black. So if I'm
Gotcha.
thinking that this variation, if I'm thinking it's about an equal game, maybe close enough to make me happy at least, then I'm not going to do the same thing when black plays here if I'm using the white stones,
Mm,
because that would just be so much better for black. So obviously, um, people would say this is the Ke Jie move, the fighting spirit move.
yes. Yes.
Um, but yeah, that's not a really
Which
logical explanation because
no, but
it's virtually impossible to logically explain it. You have to show the variations, and it's well, the game variation itself is difficult enough.
this is a good place. We're working on this new series, the Redmond's Random Encyclopedia of Go. We
Mhm.
should do one on Ki.
Okay, yeah,
Yeah,
that's a good
that would,
idea. Yeah,
yeah,
just
yeah.
remember that.
So look for that,
Okay.
folks.
So I think here I added a variation to show that this is not going to work immediately, but this pressing here is definitely the move that white wants to play
Mm,
in the local fight. So I'm going to
hmm.
show how it's not quite as effective as you might wish locally because black can cut here, and white has not played enough forcing moves in the vicinity to make it work. For instance, if
Right.
white just pulls back here, it's not really accomplished much. Black could have taken from above here, but black might choose just to play from underneath. This is it's hard to say which is exactly better, but this gives black sente to play on the left.
Yeah.
Um,
Too
the
good.
other option would be to play here and capture this way, but this way or this way, it works either way. That would be giving white some forcing moves from above and
Hmm.
side. So that's why I'm thinking that black is probably going to play from underneath. It doesn't.
Hmm.
It's not a big difference, um, but this is okay for black in either case. So what white really wants to do is white wants to have a forcing move here played at some point so that white can do something more aggressive like this, for instance,
Mm.
which would be a problem for black. So, but the timing of this forcing move in the center, this one here, is important because once white starts on the lower side, it ceases to be forcing anymore. So in
Hmm.
this case, black would be pushing through here and making a big deal of the lower side, and white would be losing too much on the lower side. So the timing of these two, this move and for instance this move, the time which one is white to play first is a kind of a delicate matter because pushing from behind here is also sometimes it's a bad move. So white has to choose. So white plays a probe first.
Hmm.
And again, as it sort of connects to what I was talking about earlier. It's a questioning whether black wants to cover here or to extend here, which would leave white with a living shape. In which case, white would be happy to play maybe. I'm just guessing at this point, but maybe white would be able to play simpler with the option to play this move later. That would be a big difference in black's territory in the corner. So white could maybe play something a bit more peaceful in the center and just leaving the lower side as it is, so that white has that potential to live in the corner or at least get a ko. In this case, it would be a ko.
Mm.
The best white can get is a ko when black has this stone here. But still, that would be some extra profit in the corner. And so black covers here. And as I was saying, it does leave the potential for white to be doing something like this later and
Mm-hmm.
maybe connecting up to the right side. Of course, white's not going to do that yet because white also has potential maybe to play a cut here or a hane here. Or the bad Suji move that we actually saw in the game, which worked in a strange way. So white presses here,
Mm.
black crawls. And again, I'm going to go into this variation again because I did this in the SG. Black cuts here, and white pushes. So black will push through here and just make the lower side so important. Like I stopped at this point, but if white continues, you have white very cramped here. Maybe white can escape.
Ugh, ugh, ugh.
It's really ugly.
It's so
White can
ugly.
escape, but of course, the lower side has become so important. In fact, in this case, that I was daydreaming because the final move, black can just capture these stones. So it just gets worse and worse for white. But even if white could hold things together, the group on, even if black could just play this move, the group on the right would be in trouble. So this is just an example of white seriously messing up.
Wow.
But the point of what I'm saying is that once white starts here, white would probably have to leave it at this point, but white's giving up too much on the lower side to make it worthwhile for white to be playing. Maybe pushing through here to capture one stone. If black does save the 3 stones, something like this would happen. For instance, but the profit that black is getting on the lower side is probably bigger. So that's my judgment on the timing here, because now white pushes. So this is where white pushed here. So if black extends, white's planning on playing here.
Right. Right.
And just to use this move, this is actually a move that was played in the actual game. It looks like a terrible move, but it has something to do with what's happening on the lower side. So I'm going to adapt this from the game variation, and white plays here. It's going to get troublesome for black. I'm going to show black trying to actually covering here. The bad shape move is pretty effective in this case. And black cuts. Black actually doesn't have very many liberties. Like if white cuts on the second line, black's going to be left with only 3 liberties. So this point. So for instance, if black plays something like this from above, white has 4 liberties. But when white squeezes here, we end up with this position where black's 1 move behind. White has 3 left and black has only 2. So that squeeze there is really important. So that explains this move. But then white jumps out. And you can see that there's still some complications to be dealt with. But like if we have this kind of variation where white escapes in the center and black starts to attack white here, let's just for the KGF fans, let's do it to the final point. Let's count white's liberties. White has 6. Yeah. And we're ignoring the idea of whether white should have played this point in the corner. But we can see that white's 1 move ahead. White has 5 liberties. Black has 4 left. And so this is the most straightforward way of doing it. But black's going to lose by 1 move. So there's problems for black in this variation. Like this is, even though I went through a few dozen moves there, it's still just a small fraction of what a human player would have to read out in this variation. But it looks like it's not working for black. So black plays this way. It looks like, now this is a really, really interesting move because it's setting up something in the corner.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where I'm going to try to link it up to the idea that the 2 knights moves here did have a slightly weak shape. Right. And black is taking advantage of that. That's why people usually push against a shoulder hit. And white not doing that is going to give us an example of why there's some weaknesses in this shape. So this black move is actually hitting those weaknesses. It's also getting rid of this push through and cut because now black can extend here. So it's a double purpose move. Like if black had played that move on this side, then white would be able to push through and cut. And you can see that if black saves the 1 stone, black's going to lose 3 stones. Sorry about that. This is probably better played filling the liberty, but black's going to lose these 3 stones on the side, which is bad, right? It's bad. But if black plays that move here, then oh, sorry about that. That was a misclick. Then capturing the 1 stone in the center is big too. So it's not so good for black. So that explains the move that black played. Black black played here, getting rid of the cut there, because now black can extend. But also looking at something in the corner, because for the time being, black's in trouble on the low.
Is
So
it
what's
just
going to happen? This is the
yeah?
game.
Oh,
It's really
okay. Yeah, because I wanted to
okay.
ask about that corner. I'm curious about. I can see a couple of sort of possibilities in the
You can
corner, but
see possibilities. We're sort of heading to a semi between
okay.
the corner white group and the
Hmm.
side black group. But it's not going to be a simple semi, because there's going to be more groups than one that could get involved. I mean, more than two. So in the game, black now started at the corner.
Oh, nice.
But there's a question here of why not extend black's liberties first?
Uh-huh.
White's just come here. White's just extended here. If black crawls, we can be pretty certain that it would be natural for white to answer
So
that.
it's like
Right?
a free
Otherwise,
move. It's like a free move, right?
that's an extra liberty. But it turns out this exchange would be bad for black when black just sacks the lower side. It's going to increase white's territory. Because when black plays this move, again, the game move, white actually has two options. And one of them is to just give up the one corner stone, one
Mm-hmm.
stone in the corner, play underneath. This is the simple variation. And white can crawl. White has enough liberties to capture the black group. In this case, it's as if black has exchanged A for white C, which is a bad exchange.
Right.
So black
Right. I
doesn't
see.
want to play that exchange quite yet. But the fact that in the game black doesn't play it, it's going to change everything now that the fight on the left has started. Because once black has played this move, so now let's have white play this again, just to show you the difference. In this case, white's going to probably miss that final black move on the right side here. So in this case, black gets the same corner, but white has to take on a smaller scale with B.
I see. That's
And
clever.
I actually put these variations through Zen, and it did give, between this variation and this variation, there was a big difference in the value given.
Uh-huh.
Like this was a slight advantage for black. I think this one was pretty close actually, but I don't trust it completely because Zen has some problems with semis.
Right.
But
But
as far as I can tell, in this case, the semi is not an issue.
but I think the lesson there is I instinctively like you were saying would have just extended because it seems free, but I think what you're
Mm-hmm.
pointing out is that because of these other possibilities, I should be thinking that you should think about that. Don't just thoughtlessly
Mm-hmm.
play it. That's a really
Well, yeah. This is a level that would be very hard, even for a professional to completely calculate during the game. Like it would take a lot of time.
right. No, I just want to make a more general thing for folks
Mm-hmm.
that
Oh
sometimes
yeah.
it seems like there's an obvious move, and it may well
Right.
be, but that even with an obvious move, it's worth taking a look and saying, do you
Mm-hmm.
really want to do that?
Well, forcing moves are always suspect,
Right. Right.
because usually there's a right time and a wrong time to play that forcing move.
And that's
So
hard. That's
yeah,
hard.
it's hard to figure that out.
Yeah.
Okay, so white plays this side. So what you said is a very good general idea.
Mm.
But in this particular case, the real point is that these 2 points, white has a choice between these 2 points, and both of them are viable. Basically,
Hmm.
both of them are very good local moves. They're the best. White has 2 best local moves, which will be changed depending on whether black plays this move or not.
Hmm.
But the fact that black has not played that move is going to change everything now. Because once black has played this, black cannot stop. Because now, this fight here, black has really messed up his shape on that side.
Oh,
It
oh,
means that adding a move here is going to be much more valuable for white. Black is in big trouble on the left side of the board now. And you can see all of
man.
those moves that black played have just made it so much more valuable for white to be doing this. It's
Wow.
going to change the whole story of the game. And so once black has played this exchange in the corner, there's really no going back. Black has to continue in the corner. So we're going to continue in the corner, and it's going to turn out black never has a good chance to play it. Well, black plays it at some point later, but it's going to change how white answers that. It's really
Uh-huh.
interesting how this change in order it's going to change the future of the game. Also, it's going to change. Black's not going to have a second chance to play that move. And while it was probably bad to play it at first, it's sort of it's a dilemma for Black also. Even looking at it after studying all the variations, it's still sort of a dilemma whether Black should have played that or not.
Interesting.
But the computer gives you a value, a number value, which it's an answer in a way. So Black covers here. So we have a dead shape for Black in the corner, and 2 dead white groups and 2 dead Black groups, basically. So well, they're not completely dead, of course.
But, yeah. Who's zooming who here?
So we have a number of possible semi-Is, which is going to make it different. Difficult to explain. So there's going to be a variation. Doing the SGF file analysis, I'm trying to avoid having multiple sub-variations because it's really hard for people to follow through all of the sub-variations.
Okay.
So I've made one variation for each move, showing various possibilities. So we're going to start. This is the game move. White started attacking Black's lower side group. So this is taking it into a fight between White's group on the lower side. For the time being, this is attacking Black's group on the lower side. So this is the game move. But what if White plays here? Now, this is a move that's worth remembering.
There's a Japanese word for that, isn't there?
It's a placement or an oki. It's a tetsuji.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Maybe it's not the word that you were thinking of, but
no, I was thinking about there's a under the stones thing. That's probably something completely different.
It's not under the stones.
Never mind.
No. That's when you capture some stones, and after they're captured, there's a good move left in the open space.
There it is.
Okay, so this is actually a move that, like, if you were given some clean tetsuji problem, next move for White, there's a good chance that this would be the answer. Because it's the tetsuji move. And it's the move that Black would play if Black was in a semi position and wanted to extend his liberties. Maybe we'll have some opportunity to show that move. But for instance, but I don't know. Like it's something sort of doesn't work with this position. Like, but if Black played here, this would still be the key point. So in some cases, when Black is having a semi position, White on the left side, it's good to play this move because this gives Black a multitude of liberties. Because it's going to take White's going to be playing all of these points, two plays on this side to fill Black's liberties, and the special properties of the corner make it a lot of moves for White to come from the corner. So that's 5 moves that I've marked that White has to play. Obviously, since White has only 3 open spaces on the outside, there's no way White's going to win this tonight. So it's an I against a no I plus the special properties of the corner. Make this move here a very special move for Black to play. It's also a key move for White. So that's what I'm talking about when I'm saying this is in a tetsuji problem. This would often be the answer. In this case, okay, it's not clear cut. Now in this variation, Black gets to crawl. The point is White's losing by 1 move in the fight between, let's just go back a few moves. In this fight between the side White group, the lower side White group against Black's corner group, White is behind 1 move. White is losing. Like if White just went straight for the semi, you can see that White would just lose. Basically because at some point White has to cover here. Coming from the corner, again, it's the special properties of the corner make it bad for White. So I had White attacking the side group now, but after playing that exchange in the corner, it's not going to work because Black can crawl here. White's going to lose to the side group also.
Yeah, I'm not saying.
Why did I discontinue that? Let's just finish that variation. Have Black throw in here. Black has 4 liberties. White has only 3.
Right.
So Black's winning. So it's not quite working in this case. Basically, attacking the corner first like this, it loses because of the move Black has just played here. It's losing a liberty for the White group on the lower side. So White can't do that quite yet. It's an example of how White would attack the corner, and also the explanation that White has to start with the side. Now, if black plays on the side, what's going to happen? This time white's going to play. Now, this is another variation that's a very important variation in this corner. When the placement we were talking about here, this one, when that doesn't work, sometimes white will cut here.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a variety of codes that can start with this cut
That's
because
right.
black
Yeah.
answers it, and white will play an Atari. Connecting here is almost always bad for black because this is filling his own liberty. So in this case, white would just start filling liberties and would easily win by one move.
Yeah.
I don't. I guess I shouldn't say easily. It's just one move. Um,
I
so
could
black
read it. I could read it, so it must be easily.
Yeah, and so this is where it gets confusing because for the time being, white cannot win against the side. Let's just do that. The danger of doing this is that I'm going to get lost in variations. But when white tries to kill the side, for the time being, this is bad for white. White's going to lose the semi. Let's just fill a few more liberties. Again, eventually white has to play this move, which fills a white liberty. White has 2, black has 3.
Yeah. Yeah. Man, it just keeps coming up short.
Yeah, white keeps coming up short. Let's see if I can find where I branched here. I'll just inch my way back.
You know, I was thinking a little pop culture reference. There's a I don't know if you've seen that Black Mirror series. It's really good. Anyway, well,
Okay.
anyway, the latest one was reminding me of what you're doing here. The latest one is one of these branching stories, so viewers can choose all these different things. So people, so if fans of that will enjoy this. You have many different variations to choose here.
So let's just go back a few moves because this was so confusing. So this is where we branched from the game. This is at this point it's still the game variation. In the game, black crawled here now, but instead, if black simply answers, what happens is that white creates this ko in the corner. And I just showed you that attacking the black side group, the black group on the lower side, it didn't work out for white. So playing this move to start a semi-eye on the side was not a success for white when black extended liberties and then just answered that.
Right.
So instead, white's going to play here. And this is where it gets a bit fuzzy maybe, because white's just, for the time being, is sacrificing that lower side group. But black needs to add a move to start with. Black needs to add fill a liberty because just to add one more variation. This is going to be a ko. Like if white starts a ko and white has
direct ko.
If white has enough ko threats, white's going to win by one move.
Yeah.
But the problem is that white doesn't have any ko threats at all, so white would just lose the ko. So that's why white is not at this point playing the ko there. So I have white just playing on the outside as if nothing is happening, and black is going to fill a liberty, and white's just going to continue playing outside. And for the time being, the problem is black's group in the center here. Let's mark it. This group here, for the time being, it's winning the semi-eye. Like it's winning by 1 or 2 moves. But white has possibilities to squeeze from the center. Also, the problem for white seems to be white's group on the left side here. But white can, at any time, white can throw it in at C. And if white wins that ko, like if let's have black play something. Let's just I don't know. Every move here is going to be really complicated, hard to choose. But if we have something like this happen, and this white move was not a very good move, but I just want to demonstrate how white can handle the left side group. Although black can win the semi-eye, white still needs ko threats to make this work. But if white can squeeze from this side, then of course at any point white can make a living shape on them. The problem with this variation is that white didn't have any ko threats here. But basically white does have that option of making sabaki by making a ko in the corner, which will work if that group on the left side gets into trouble.
Right.
And so there's a lot of it's really fuzzy here because we don't really know what's going to happen distinctly. But white does have the potential to squeeze from the center, and the potential to squeeze from the corner. And the potential to, while squeezing from the center, maybe white's going to get some territory on the left side. White's group on the lower side is being killed, but we can see that on the right here. Let's just change the marks to white's potential on the right side is to can eventually save these stones, connect them up to white's group in the center. In that case, white will have trashed the lower side black territory. So white does have some compensation for losing this group on the lower side. So this actually looks okay for white.
Okay.
So this is the variation for what happens if black covers here. Intuitively, it's really hard to see why this shouldn't be better than the game move, which is here. Because in the game variation, black's actually going to lose the lower side group.
Wow.
Okay, so now the variation for this move is obviously white should connect, right?
I can't see any reason why. What's wrong with that?
So now black is going to
feels like a trick, though.
Well, obviously, black has extended his liberties by one move.
Right.
The difference here is that black is going, instead of playing this move, which would revert sort of to the previous variation, instead of playing this move, black gets to improve the corner while playing the same semi. So black is still, now that black is scrolled there on the second line, black has played this exchange. It gives black a one move advantage in this fight on the lower side. And by playing this move that I'm showing here, the move that black has just played, this Hane on the first line, black has slightly improved the corner position. White will still cut here, but this time black can connect. But it's still a ko. It's just not such a good ko for white. It's a better ko for black. Black takes first, and you can see that white has a dead shape on the left side too. So this would be good for black.
Sure.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad you find it apparent.
No. I mean, it's just it turned around. I mean, everything was coming up good for white. So that
yes,
the timing, and this is going back to your original point, which is that the timing of that extension,
it changes everything.
It changes everything.
Yeah. But the point here for the choice of white's move, not to connect on the third line, was the game variation. The drawback of connecting on the third line here is that black gets to improve the corner while taking the semi one step forward, instead of having to play on the other side with a move like this, in which case the corner would not have improved. It would be that the same ko pending in the corner here.
Right.
And with this ko, like white had the leisure to play a move on the outside, and always have, even if white loses the semi, white still has that extra profit that comes in the corner. So that's the big difference between the ko I was showing before, where white was completely dead on the left side, and in this variation, white always has the possibility of squeezing from the corner and getting two eyes there. So that's the big difference between those two variations.
All right, as it turns out, this game got really complicated with lots of fascinating variations. So we're going to break here. We'll be back next week with the exciting conclusion to game 28. Thanks again to our AGA members who make all these videos possible. And please consider joining the American Go Association at usgo.org. It takes just a few minutes, and we really appreciate the support. See you all next week.